I'm back, Paper and Glam family, coming to you from Napa. If you're just joining us for the journey, I moved March 1st. So I got the keys March 1st, the movers came March 2nd. And for the last 10 days, I have been furiously unpacking, setting up life while, keeping the wheels on the wagon with the business of Paper and Glam. So with this, this big communal experience we're all going through, which is the coronavirus, I have been spending a lot of time thinking about this tale as old as time. Everything happens for a reason. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. I always just want to come to you guys with encouragement, especially in the big things that we're experiencing together, because Paper and Glam is all about seasonal living, and seasonal living at its core is just the communal experience, right? The human experience. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I'm just going to cue the intro and then we're going to get to it. Hello, podcast family. I'm Lisamarie. I am the founder and creator of Paper and Glam. We are a lifestyle brand dedicated to planning and reading and seasonal living. If that sounds like fun to you, you can find out more at paperandglam.com. But today I'm here with encouragement for closing the gap between where you are today and where you want to be. We at Paper and Glam are all about transforming our lives, right? Like self-optimization. We only have one shot here and we're going to go for it. We're going to go hard. We say glam so hard in our community, which just means exactly that, right? Like I will not be stopped. So today and every day here on the Paper and Glam podcast, we're going to talk about just some strategies and some things that I've leveraged in my life to close that gap and to really manifest my dreams and to experience that future you that we're all looking for. So in January, I read this book called Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved by Kate Baller. And Kate also has a podcast called Everything Happens for a Reason. I haven't had an opportunity to check it out, but it's on my subscription list. So Kate, just real quick, is a professor of theology who was diagnosed with stage 3 or 4 colon cancer. And she is my age. She's 33 or was 33 and had, a husband and a son. And, she was right in the thick of it. And it really caused her to examine this idea that everything happens for a reason. And if you're just joining us at Paper and Glam, I'm a huge reader. And this is really a very large community of readers. So we have what may be the first video book club ever running for the last 6 years. And that's over on YouTube. If you Google Paper and Glam Book Club, you'll find it. And we also have a Patreon where we talk about all things books and reading. So with Book Club, we read a book a month together and discuss it live the last Thursday of the month. And then on Patreon, we talk about things just in general with reading. And one of the books we talked about was this one. And this idea that everything happens for a reason really comes to light, especially in times of communal crisis, right? Like national crisis, or in this case, global crisis with the coronavirus. So I personally do not believe everything happens for a reason. I think that's terrible theology, especially when we're talking about tragedy, right? But I do believe to the core of my being that God makes beauty from ashes. So we talked a whole entire God and Glam episode on that. And I know a lot of you guys are my ride and die God and Glam family too. So I won't go too deep into that. I'll send you that way if you want to hear more about this beauty for ashes idea. But I do believe just at my core that strange and unexpected blessings come out of the unpredictable, right? These unexpected upsets that just blindside us. And I'm sure you've seen that pattern in your life play out time and time again. So another way to put it is something that Sherry Salata coined, who, if you're not familiar with her, she was Oprah's right-hand woman for a couple decades. And she just came out with a book a year ago called The Beautiful No that I just finished reading yesterday. And her kind of phrase for everything happens for a reason goes along with this beautiful no idea. So the concept is that the no's in our lives, right? The things that like set us back, the things that are not what we wanted, the things that disappoint us, the things that seem like setbacks are really beautiful no's. And when we look back and we see them in reverse, those are the beautiful no's that lead us to the most beautiful life, a life far more beautiful than the one that we had planned. And it goes just back to the idea that God is always calling us into bigger stories than we would have written for ourselves. So this idea that everything happens for a reason, is of course super controversial. And I almost don't want to focus entirely on that. What I want to focus on is the way that we walk through uncertainty is the power of life and death. And that sounds so incredibly strong, and I want it to, because when we're uncomfortable, when we're uncertain, a lot of times that pushes us into the best versions of ourselves. And of course, I don't want to ever say that, like make light of tragedy or kind of like spin something wonderful out of tragedy, because it's right and appropriate to have kind of a visceral anger and to have that, raw emotion and to grieve with those who are grieving and, pray with those who are praying, of course. But at the same time, we as creators of our world, of our communities, we want to be focused on the things that are going to move us forward, right? We want to focus on how we can help. And, we're human beings, right? But we're also, we're doers. We want to take action, even if that action isn't directly related to the problem at hand, which is exactly why all of the toilet paper is sold out, right? So I want to just come to you guys today with just some thoughts on actionable steps, right? Like it can feel like we don't know what action to take because there's so much uncertainty, and that can be like the most damaging thing at all, because we want to take action. We want to make things better. That's what we're here to do. So I want to just remind you guys that creativity itself is a survival skill, that it's a survival mechanism. That is why the best art a lot of the times comes out of pain, right? Comes out of uncertainty, comes out of disappointment, because when we are in that season feeling those things, it's when creativity blossoms. It's when we blossom. It's when we get shaken out of our comfort and we wake up, right? It's a wake up call. So one of the things that when I was in a time of uncertainty, and I still am, right before a move, I started this podcast. So this podcast episode is sponsored by Anchor, because I know a lot of you want to start podcasts of your own. You have a message to get out there. So I just want to talk really briefly about how I started this podcast, because it was so simple. Okay, so back to this idea of creativity going hand in hand with uncertainty. So I have a feeling if you comb through your life, you might find that this coronavirus has brought some unexpected blessings. So for me, it really has brought a little wink from God. So like I said at the beginning of the episode, I moved back to my hometown, back to my family just 2 weeks ago, right as this coronavirus was starting to be a concern, right? Before we knew about it, but it was kind of, it didn't hit us like it's hitting us now. And I am just so grateful to be back with my family during this time, not because I'm concerned about getting the virus, I'm healthy and all of that, but just because I'm more concerned with just the results of the panic it's creating. And of course, I totally, I'm praying for those of you who have people in your family, loved ones who are more vulnerable. Like I myself have a 94-year-old grandmother, so I get it. But, for me, I'm definitely just so grateful that I'm here. My grandmother actually lives behind me right now. So it's just really crazy that I'm right literally in her backyard, and my mom lives a mile up the road, literally under a mile. So I'm just so incredibly thankful that God planned this in advance, right? It really feels like he planned my move to get in front of this. And And it's just like a wink, right? There's this song I love by Carrie Job. It's on the God and Glam playlist, which you can find on Spotify, and I'll link it below too. And it's a song called I Am Not Alone, but there's a line in it that says, it's God speaking, and it says, "For this moment I planned ahead." And it's a line that like shakes me to my core, because have you guys had that experience where you're just amazed because like for this moment you're living in, you know that God planned ahead? Or if that's a term that makes you uncomfortable, feel free to substitute the universe or, whatever, wherever you're at spiritually. But for me, it's like such a beautiful reminder that God knows me and he sees me and he's in the details of my life. And, I'm sure there'll be a lot of unexpected blessings that come out of this, because there always are. Whenever there's disruption, there is always equal and greater opportunity. And again, I don't want to ever sound like I'm opportunizing, tragedy or panic or anything like that, but that's the reality, right? And I feel like there is so much, you guys don't come to me for like tips on preventing the coronavirus, right? Like, you're reading all of that and I know that, but you come to me for encouragement, right? And to really ground ourselves in the truth. That's what I want Paper and Glam to be about. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. So this idea of uncertainty and creativity, it's like we need to use this wake-up call, this pause in life. If you are someone who is home from work or home from school, or you have kind of a shakeup in your routine, this is such a great opportunity, because routine is the death of creativity. And I'm all about routine. So with anything, there's a balance. The very first episode of this podcast is manifestation morning routines. But there's a balance, right? Because when we get into a routine, our brain kind of just like collapses all the information, because it's like, oh yeah, we got this. And there's benefits to that, but there's also to the detriment of our creativity. That's why travel is so important. And that's why shaking up our routine is so important. So it's continuing to live in that balance. So I am suspecting that in some way or another, your routine has just been shaken up. And that is such an opportunity for creativity, an opportunity to pause and reflect, an opportunity to, remake our lives and think about how we need to live differently in the next season. And it doesn't have to be huge changes. I talk about this all the time because I know I set myself up for failure by making things really like dramatic, in the sense of like, we'll take workouts. It's like, I want to like put on a cute workout outfit and like work out for an hour and a half and like come home like super drenched in sweat. And because of that like really high bar, a lot of times I don't get to it. You know what I mean? So just to apply that to this idea of creativity and uncertainty, it's like that something good is going to come out of this, because something good always comes out of tragedy, right? Let's look at 2008. Those of us who lived through that huge economic downturn, remember, like I graduated from college right then. And like, unless like you were an accountant, you literally like didn't have a job. And it was really crazy, because it's like, here I was graduating with like, 6 figures of debt, like into this huge time of uncertainty. But it made people extremely creative about how to earn a living, right? And out of that, we got social media. Out of that, we got, the blossoming of YouTube, which is social media too. But, we got all of these alternative ways to create income, right? And out of disruption, we always get alternative ways to live, because it forces creativity. So of course, there's going to be tragedy. And of course, I'm praying prayers up for everything going on in the country, but also, there's always a rainbow after the storm, right? That's like a biblical truth that we really like can rest in. So I hope this was encouraging for you guys today. I just really wanted to show up after my move to just encourage you and to connect with you and to give maybe an alternate perspective to what we're hearing. So I'm praying for you guys. Please stay safe. And just thank you for continuing to come together in a community. And I'm really grateful that we have just this incredible network of like-minded women that can still meet together, right? Like, we are an internet-based community, which is so cool, because we can come gather together from wherever we are, whenever we are, despite the circumstances. So thank you guys for continuing to show up for me, and I'm going to continue showing up for you, and we're going to get through this together as a community, like we always have and like we always will. So as always, here's to the next era, Paper and Glam family.